Sometimes you just have to do that. Did you see me? Do I look funny? Yeah, sometimes you just have to do that. When we're talking about, right? Sometimes you just have to, praise the Lord. It's I was just praying. I was praying for victims of terrorism all across the world. Uh, I am always praying about that. Actually, I pray about when I pray. I can't pray just for myself. Um, I have to pray for a lot of people because I know that I'm not the only person who needs a prayer. You know what I mean? Um, for example, uh, I'm actually uh, working on a little something for my company, and I can't really talk much about it because it's well, it's still in the works, and I don't really want to talk about uh, what we're going to do yet. But most definitely, I've been doing a lot of research about the kind of resources that we have here in our country for different kinds of mass attacks. Okay. So we're looking at whatever you consider as a mass attack, of course. We're talking about directed energy attacks, for example. I mean, that became a very big thing back in 2016, 2017. But then they talked about it until like 2023, and then the hype died down. And see, funny thing is that there was a hype, and there wasn't just hype. All of a sudden, all of these targets that who claim that they are victims of the same kind of technology came forth, in different cities, and not just diplomats, not just government workers, but just civilians. And you wonder, how are civilians being harmed with this kind of technology and nobody knows about it? And it's been many years because they report that it's been many, many years uh, since they've become victims. And it's my goodness, it's oh my goodness, yay, good. I found a resource. How awesome. Okay. Uh, the power of research. So yeah, when you find out that your community has hundreds of people who are, listening to anomalous sounds and having AHI, which is anomalous health incidents, um, you start to panic because the government is not really talking about this sort of weapon being a threat to the community. They're talking about it like an international war kind of thing, kind of a threat. And if you travel out of the country and you're on a mission for your government, then you might get hit. That's kind of how the media has been set up to talk about this, and that's completely wrong. Because what they should be talking about is how they do it on a daily basis to people like you and me, the homeless guy, the subway worker, the janitor at your school, the guy who parks your car at the valet, when you get to work, you just the person who puts you on the ride at SeaWorld, all these people, all these random people, they become targets for specific reasons. And it's funny how somebody can become a target um, by doing basically nothing at all, or just being who they are. And there are some characteristics to it. And I'm exploring all of this. And I'm building a lot of knowledge, because without the knowledge, and without the knowledge, you can't help people at all. You need to understand what it is that you're fighting, to be able to fight it. And as a victim myself, I have found that there are very little supports in place for survivors of directed energy, and also of ritual abuse. But I've been finding that, for example, the UK has a lot of resources for ritual abuse, and now today, I just found that there are some resources here in the United States that I didn't know about for survivors of sex trafficking and ritual abuse. So basically, we're talking about satanic ritual abuse, or what used to be called satanic ritual abuse in the FBI. And this was basically directed towards children back in the day. It's the only thing that you can find online when you write satanic ritual abuse. It'll come up with just like articles and like journals and just cases, uh, case studies about children who have been abused satanically and how they have been treated. But there isn't anything for adult victims. There isn't a lot of outreach for adult victims. And most definitely our communities, like most definitely, there is very little education in the community about what witchcraft is, about what witchcraft can do, and how people abuse uh, their religious freedom rights to hurt people through witchcraft, to injure people. And I believe that our communities need that education, that hardcore education right now, because I have seen an increase in targets of ritual abuse, for example, here in Florida. And I think that we need to just work on talking about these things. Just increase the conversational rate on ritual abuse and how it relates to sex trafficking, not just of children, but also of adults. How it also involves other things, um, like um, like terrorism, like it can be considered terrorism instead of just ritual abuse, and how it gets there. Um, so basically, terrorism. I think I might have talked about this before, but when you talk about terrorism, you are speaking about people or groups who get in, people who get in groups and have certain power to terrorize, or to have certain tools to terrorize communities, no matter how large or how small the community. And these persons can be international. They can come into our country, or they can be local. They can be domestic. They can be as close as your next door neighbor, or they can be as far as, you're in Florida and they're in New York, but they can terrorize you all the way from New York. In Florida. So it really all depends on how on the tools that they're using. And terrorism basically is about people who want something from the government. Uh, that's why they terrorize people, or why they orchestrate, or they stage this entire what is it called? My goodness. It's called, it's called, it's called, my goodness, I forgot. I'm telling you what it's called in just one moment, just as I look at this arroz con pollo, because that's what we call when things aren't quite fine in Puerto Rico. We say, esto es un arroz con pollo. This is a rice with chicken. I don't know why rice with chicken is really good. It's not a mess. Unless you make it wrong, which is what I do. I don't know how to cook. Um, so yeah, I'm just ecstatic that I'm actually finding some information, right? But we need to stay aware right now, because with this war back in Israel, and knowing that Havana was attacked in 2016, when the embassy got reopened, means that somebody was waiting for that particular thing to happen to produce an attack that would endanger that relationship with Cuba. But why with Cuba? Cuba is like right next door to Puerto Rico, right next door to Dominican Republic, right next door to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And, you know, Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, they're as much or as effective Caribbean or Antilles location for war efforts, which is why we Puerto Ricans are, or Puerto Rico is a good strategic location for the military of the United States of America. And I learned all of this going to school, guys. So stay in school. What I don't understand is why they haven't tried these things in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so it is that we have to start figuring out if they actually have. They haven't done it to diplomats in Puerto Rico that we know of. But then we don't really have much of a comparison to make. We don't have a lot of reports of directed energy that we've heard of. So maybe there have been some attacks and we don't know it. But definitely here in the U.S. there are a lot of reports, and we want those reports to be publicized. We want those reports to make the noise that they need to make. Why? I'm gonna tell you why. Because we don't have an emergency plan for it. We don't. FEMA does not have a national emergency exercise for a mass directed energy attack. It's nowhere. I've tried contacting a couple of people here locally in the state of Florida. The I don't remember what they called right now, but I can tell you. Not the names of the people, but talking about, boy, what is this called? I'm talking about FEMA, right? And there is another organization which is it's in my sent items, FDEM. Yeah, so FEMA and FDEM. Florida Department of Emergency Maneuvers or something like that. I'm not really sure, but that's more or less, it's like tiny FEMA. I'm gonna call it tiny FEMA. Here it's a local organization, and it is a state organization. So I've tried to reach out to them and ask them, hey, do you know if there's anything like this, or is it in plans, or who can I talk to? But I haven't gotten a response back. Look at that. I'm the writer. So it's really difficult to open up conversation with certain agencies, government agencies, congressmen, and that leads us to a very big problem. The very big problem being 9/11. And suffering from a second 9/11, something a lot bigger than what happened at the World Trade Center. Why? Because directed energy is something that can take thousands of people at a time, probably. It can take military bases. It can take the Pentagon. It can take the White House. It can take the whole areas. Let's see. What is the range of injury or damage that directed energy weapons cause by mile radius? Let's see. So it says that directed energy weapons can produce a range of effects from non-lethal to lethal, depending on factors such as time on target, distance to the target, and the part of the target on which the DO is focused. That's what it's called, directed energy weapons, DO. Mild first-degree burns can occur up to 11 kilometers away, while third-degree burns could affect anyone up to 8 kilometers away. Third-degree burns covering more than 24% of the body would likely be fatal without immediate medical care. So we don't have, and that's speaking about burns, okay? Now, this kind of technology is used a lot, not just to burn you, because, for example, DOs include microwave weapons includes lasers, directed energy weapons, being one of them. I think that's what it is. Um, no, directed energy weapon is like a laser, for example. We're talking about lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and sound beams. Okay. So this can target anything from technology, weapons, technology, personnel, missiles, vehicles, and optical devices. And it can just obliterate a whole military base, and leave it, uh, service without service at all. Like they wouldn't be able to do a thing. Um, and it also there is the burning effect. But what these diplomats all across the world really have been feeling, because these attacks have been happening all across the world internationally. Um, uh, what's been happening is that they are hearing like this noise. It sounds like crickets. Some of them, some of them don't hear anything, and this is one of the most invisible attacks that there exist, right? And I hope they're here for me. Um, so 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 one of the things that they do is they target your head, right, with the purpose of debilitating you, um, or injuring you enough that you are uh that hitting you enough with enough force that they can injure your brain, and that injury will cause confusion, like momentarily. What you're going to feel, at first, it's like confusion. You're going to feel nausea. You're going to feel headiness. You're going to feel like if you're like using a computer, you're not going to be able to compute. Like you can't do any math at that moment. You can barely read. And then you're going to feel that something is wrong with your body, like when you have palpitations, sort of. You might get palpitations as well, but you're going to feel sort of buzzing on your body. And you are going to feel like you're electrified a little. And your mouth is going to feel a little funny, like maybe you feel a little like coldness in your breath or something like that, or in your nostrils. Your entire body is just going to suddenly change. And those are just some of the symptoms. Some people get headaches. Some people get stroke symptoms. So this is basically a very, very dangerous weapon. Like it says, the effects are from non-lethal to lethal. Before today, I had read that directed energy weapons that we had were non-lethal, but I knew for a fact that they were lethal. And so it sounds pretty serious, right? Yeah. Um, if you want to take a look at history, um, it seems like the mirrors of Archimedes, um, which is a legend, it created a mirror with an adjustable focal length to focus sunlight on ships of the Roman fleet as they invaded Syracuse, setting them on fire. So this is more or less how directed energy also works. So I want to tell you, this is no joke. All right. Um, we are not talking about a you know your 5-year old's laser gun. Okay. We are talking about big weapons. We're talking about the Millennium Falcon, all right, or the Death Star, and we're talking about the lasers that come out of those things. All right. We are Star Wars. All right. Now you got to decide which side you're on. It's like everything in life. You got to decide whose side you're on. If you're on the light side, we know that you're going to, be training with Obi-Wan on how to use a lightsaber. That means your directed energy weapons. Now, to be able to use those lightsabers correctly, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this in future um talks. So a lightsaber is very, very difficult to wield, right? It's a sensitive weapon. It's something that can break easily too, and it's very, very costly. But the most important thing is that you need to learn how to use it correctly so that A, you don't injure yourself, and B, you don't injure people who you don't have to injure, and C, you actually injure the people or things that you're meant to injure. You have to be responsible about it. And also, well, you know that you're not the only one who has lightsabers, right? So you know that the Death Star is full of soldiers, of troopers, stormtroopers who have, their lightsabers too. They're a different color, but that doesn't make them any less, dangerous. In fact, some of them seem a little bit more like scarier than others. Like Darth Maul's, that's scary. So what we want to do is figure out what it is that the USA and its territories is going to do in the event that Darth Vader decides to, locate the Death Star right on top of us and start shooting at us with their lasers and, coming down at us with, their lightsabers. The good thing about lightsabers is that you can see them. But directed energy is not quite like a lightsaber. You can't really see the attack. You're just going to be taken by surprise. And that just puts everybody in the USA in danger, in grave, grave danger of not being prepared for something like that. And in fact, we already are in a state of emergency. If any one of the presidents who has been sitting in the last, 10, 20 years had done anything about what I'm talking about right now, we probably would have saved a lot of lives by now. If they would have collected the information that they had to collect, the data that they would have gotten back on reports of civilians having Havana syndrome, and Havana syndrome is what is called, when you are hit with directed energy and, all those symptoms that you feel. They were coined Havana syndrome because the first time that most people heard about directed energy weapons was in that attack in 2016. But in fact, there have been victims of directed energy since this technology existed. And it hasn't existed only in the US. This actually started in Russia, I believe. So they have the head on it, on this technology. And possibly other really bad technology like voice to skull. They probably have that kind of stuff going on. Nobody talks about it, but it exists. And that's what's going on right now. We need to reopen this conversation. We need to make it a bomb. Okay? We need to make it, I'm talking about positive bomb, the kind that has confetti in it. So we have to drop this bomb with confetti on the United States so that everybody looks at the confetti and the glitter and go like, oh, what's going on? Everything looks so bright and colorful, and my attention is really caught. And you go like, all right, that's what I wanted. Now that I've got your attention, let me bring you up to a very important subject, which is Congress and Supreme Court and the White House and the Pentagon and the FBI and the are doing and FEMA are doing absolutely nothing about the fact that we can be hit by directed energy mass attacks at any moment, or we already are, and we don't have an emergency plan for it. The very question about that is on every target's mind is why. If these reports have been taking place for years, the government knows that they have these weapons and that other nations have these weapons and that these weapons can be infiltrated into civilian or local areas, and that the symptoms that are being reported are consistent with what they know is directed energy and even voice to skull technology, I've heard. And all these things are being also tied to things like ritual abuse, sex trafficking, and other kind of trafficking, anarchism, extremism like KKK, like Hamas, like Taliban, stuff like that. I think we don't know who did Havana yet, but maybe Hamas or the Taliban or some one of these groups in the Mediterranean might have tried to say, oh, we did it, because that's what they always do. Even if they didn't do it, they just raise their hand and say, we'll take the bad rap. It's okay, because we like the bad rap, because that's what we do. We live on it. So it's time, guys. It's time that we start moving this dial a different direction, in a different direction. And maybe it takes a whole lot of people to do this. Maybe it just takes a few, but it can be done. At the measure that you can learn about these things, go ahead and do so. Why? Because you don't have to become a victim to prepare for an attack like this one. You can prepare your family and not look like the neighborhood conspiracy, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. You don't. Because, for example, you can start getting a Faraday material, like mesh and just like sheets of Faraday. Faraday is a kind of material that deflects directed EMF or uh, uh, I'll tell you what it is. Basically, it's the same kind of energy that's used in directed energy. EMF, it's electromotive force, um, and it's an energy transfer to an electric circuit per unit of electric charge measured in volts. Electromagnetic fields are an area of moving electrical charges. So, for example, some targets say that when they're first attacked, they feel that their houses have like an electromagnetic field on the walls, and the perpetrators don't let them leave the house until they're done doing whatever it is that they're doing to them. Um, it's pretty scary. Uh, you can help your house become prepared for that kind of attack by shielding your walls with Faraday paint. Um, there's the Faraday material. You can use mesh to make like these canopies for your beds, for your children's beds, and they look very pretty. Yeah, they don't look awful. And you can also combine it with like household items. Like you can put the Faraday and then the curtain and you'll be protected. I'm not telling you that this is going to completely stop like a large hertz, attack. And I don't know how to say that correctly, so I really apologize. But I can tell you that this is going to detain some of that energy from coming in, so that you don't get the worst of it. Especially if you are a habitual victim, or you become a habitual victim, it can help you stop or derail your assailants. And when they see that they're not really like hurting you very much, they might just go away. Um, yeah, and that way also you can gauge the amount of damage that they are causing you. By the way, there are radioactivity and microwave not radars, meters that you can also have in your house, so that if you think you're suffering from a directed energy attack, you can just turn it on and see, what the hertz is, what the radiation amount is in your house. Radiation poisoning is very difficult to handle. If Acute radiation syndrome or radiation sickness, also known as radiation poisoning, is caused by high doses of radiation, such as those from nuclear explosions or from direct handling or consumption of radioactive material, which can happen if you are habitually hit with microwaves. Early symptoms of radiation poisoning, such as nausea, vomiting, and headaches, can start within minutes to days. Radiation damages your stomach and intestines, blood vessels, and bone marrow, which makes blood cells. Damage to bone marrow lowers the number of disease-fighting white blood cells in your body. As a result, most people who die from radiation sickness are killed by infections or internal bleeding. So it is to say that we can still do something about it. And if we protect one house, we can protect two. And if we can help protect two houses by community education and, having prevention programs, having report programs, having, ah, sorry, uh, victim of witchcraft and other stuff. Um, and it's something that we can do, we can continue to propagate it. If we can do it for one person or for one community, for one neighborhood, we can do it for the next, and we can just continue to bring that to the table. We can, join forces with the police. We can, and even if the police doesn't get involved because they, state laws or whatever don't let them, or that you're going to encounter blockages when the government doesn't want to do something. Um, but you can start, for example, talking to school boards and mentioning and protecting your children. And one way in which that can happen is by, for example, building Faraday cages in specified areas where students, maybe some students can go into the Faraday cages, and like the littler ones, for example. And also you can start getting Faraday material, like Faraday sheets or Faraday blankets. And those Faraday blankets or sheets, they can be kept in a cupboard somewhere in the classroom. And if there's a directed energy attack, that you just shield and you cover yourself under your desk, because you can do that. I've done that. I get under tables. I get under the bed. The bed is not usually the best place, but I go into dark spaces where I can't where the perps can't see where I am. And Yeah. So that kind of thing. Um Tables. So yeah, if you are interested in knowing more about this, I will be talking more about all my research soon. I'm going to check out this website called Relentless Hope, which helps survivors of sex trafficking and ritual abuse. You can check it out if you have become a sex trafficking or ritual abuse victim. They appear to be worthy. They have very good resources here. Um, they're it's a well made um, it's a well made website. Yep, it's not just any website. And they help you find counselors, legal assistance, um, what else? Housing, if you need housing. Usually victims of ritual abuse and I imagine sex trafficking too, usually end up on the streets. That's what happened to me. So that's part of my story. So one day we'll talk about my entire story, or later you can read about it. But I just wanted to talk to you about these things. I think it's very, very important that we start spreading awareness, about the things that are killing our country silently. I think it's time. And we're going to just move that dial down to where it needs to go. We're going to fast forward to the time where these things are going to happen for real. Not just talk about it, but get all the community involved, communities all across Florida. And then, other parts of the state. This is what I do all day. Yeah. Satanic ritual abuse, which is one of the things that I am a victim of. I'm not just a victim of Satanism. I'm a victim of witchcraft in general, magic. I'm just going to put it like that. I'm a victim of magic and of demonic power. Yep. I fight this on a daily basis from morning to night and sometimes through the night. God helps me fight it through the night. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun because when I wake up, I know that I've been in a battle. I just don't know what happened mostly. But I know that God was fighting for me all night. And that is one of the most amazing feelings. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about these things and let's make it for real. Shalom.